Hello, my name is Connor Dunbar from BA Systems Applied Intelligence. Welcome to our first of a series of partner-focused podcasts. And today, the first of our series, we'll be discussing to what extent we can truly trust technologies to secure remote working. Providing their thoughts on the topic, we have Joe Boyle, co-founder of SaltDNA, Fabian Eberel, co-founder of Keyless, and Andrew Harwood from BA Systems Applied Intelligence, who'll be providing his opinions too. I'll now pass you over to Andrew, who will introduce you to the topic and the first podcast.
Hello, I'm Andrew Harwood from BA Systems Applied Intelligence, where I am responsible for our strategic thinking about future technologies and innovation. The theme of this podcast is to what extent can we trust technologies to secure remote working? So what does this actually mean? Well, with the backdrop of COVID-19, businesses have been forced through lockdown to adapt their ways of working. Offices have been abandoned and workers are learning to perform their duties from their own homes. The transition to remote working was achieved almost overnight, but without the opportunity to review, define, and implement a robust approach to security. As it seems we are unlikely to return to a traditional office-based work pattern post-COVID, businesses should be reviewing their strategies on how best to roll out and manage secure solutions to handle the most sensitive information. Potentially, one of the greatest barriers and threats to the ongoing practice of remote working is assuring IT security and having a coherent plan that enables both communication and collaboration. Choosing the right technical solution is crucial. What services to use, where should they be hosted and by whom? Are there different levels of trust applicable to different tools, and how should they be implemented and managed? To share their thoughts on the subject is Joe Boyle, co-founder of SaltDNA, and Fabian Aberelli, the co-founder of Keyless.io. Joe, could you give us a quick introduction to yourself and to SaltDNA, please? Thank you.
Absolutely. Hi, Andrew. I'm delighted to be here. My name is Joe Boyle. I'm a founder in SaltDNA. I've been working in the telecoms and networking space for the past 20 years. We founded SaltDNA about 8 years ago as a reaction to the massive increase in consumer apps being used within businesses. We realized that there would be a healthy market within enterprise to really bring back compliance management, visibility, and control back into the communications within these enterprises. So we've been at this for 8 years, and I'm delighted to be here and excited to talk through the topics you've got in front of us.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Joe. Fabian, could you give us an introduction to yourself and to Keyless?
Yes, absolutely. Thanks very much, Andrew, for having us. And hello, everyone. I'm Fabian, co-founder and COO of Keyless. We are a deep tech cybersecurity company building privacy-preserving biometric authentication solutions that are based on more than 10 years of research in biometrics and cryptography. And we embarked on a mission to enable everyone to seamlessly access any digital service from any device while keeping your personal data safe, private, and under your control. And our zero trust authentication solutions eliminate the need for businesses to store and manage sensitive information, including passwords, biometrics, or cryptographic keys without compromising on convenience and privacy for the users, enabling businesses to adopt passwordless authentication, protect the remote workforce, and enable strong customer authentication with just one look into a front-facing camera of any device, completely independent of hardware vendor and operating system.
Brilliant. Thank you very much. Right, let's get us started. So let's consider the current practices of using unmanaged collaboration tools and social media apps. So Fabienne, could you talk about the potential for using a broad portfolio of technology solutions and how they can be adopted? Each will have their own challenges about security and assurance and authentication. And can we consider what can be done to harmonize the authentication and access controls and still retain that overall security of the services, whilst giving a broad suite of kind of products and that the businesses will need with collaboration, whiteboards, messaging, and so on?
Yes, absolutely, and I think that's a great point. In order to harmonize authentication and access control, integration of these various solutions into the broader context of identity and access management and the security architecture is crucial. And at present, we're seeing two key trends in the market today, which center around zero trust networking, meaning the trend toward zero trust architectural approaches, and passwordless authentication, where businesses eliminate the sharing of particular secrets such as passwords and the users who control their personal data, which is driven by an increased adoption of biometric technologies as well, where we see a trend where the workforce becomes more and more mobile, and we're in an environment of rapid digital transformation, which COVID certainly accelerated massively, including new technical capabilities and standards around authentication, and high consumer and employee expectations of solutions that deliver a great experience across all channels, especially when it comes to messaging apps. And the market research firm Gartner predicts that by 2022, 60% of large enterprises and 90% of mid-sized enterprises will implement passwordless methods. And on the other side, there are several drivers for the adoption of biometric authentication that we all know from our daily use with smartphones, where the most obvious driver is customer experience that provides a fast and easy way to authenticate ourselves into these services. And a market trend which unfortunately is growing in fraud and cybercrime, where we've seen during the last months of the pandemic, phishing attacks skyrocket at levels more than 600% of months prior to COVID. And we see a regulatory push for privacy compliance and security, which I think is also a point that Joe can cover pretty well when it comes to the usage of WhatsApp, for example, in the context of business applications, where in Europe we have the GDPR and also PSD2 strong customer authentication requirements in sectors like the financial services industry, in around 60 countries globally that adopt very like-minded guidelines such as the GDPR across the world, which all drives toward a more personal or unique way of authenticating the person, whether that's the employee or individual at the actual application rather than the enterprise network. So integrating all these various solutions into a context that can be secured and centrally managed is crucial.
Joe, do you?
Yeah, I mean, all great points made there by Fabian. The one thing I would add, I suppose, is the integration between different applications and the need for increased is really driving the need for increased usability. And what consumer apps are experts at is driving adoption. They really need to make their products as seamless and as easy to use as possible. And so the more we can remove the barriers to adoption, the more you can drive the integration between the different components and applications that they're being asked to use on a daily basis. Really, that drives productivity and output within industries and makes everyone's life easier. So, Fabian's just hit the nail on the head there in terms of his summation of what we need to be doing and where the big trends are.
Okay, so basically it allows businesses to keep overarching control of the multiple different platforms that are using with the appropriate controls on each of the applications. Do you think it's straightforward to work with all applications, or are there certain things that you will both need in order to do that?
I think we're seeing ways of standard protocols for integration of these various services. And I don't want to become too technical, but SAML, OpenID Connect have been around for many years and can be used to integrate these various systems in a centrally managed identity management system that the enterprises are using, even though we're also seeing a trend toward decoupling authentication from identity management overall, where the trade-off that Joe alluded to of either security and privacy on the one side, or user experience and convenience on the other side is really key to driving adoption of solutions that employees who are users as well should be using. And passwords are actually at the very core of that underlying issue, where we've seen that about 80% of data breaches go back to the use of weak or stolen credentials, such as passwords. 50% of help desk calls within enterprises are password-related support tickets. And according to Forrest, a simple password reset costs about $70. So that's actually a pretty large item, not only when it comes to overall security, but also what Joe said in terms of total cost of ownership of maintaining these systems.
Yeah, I mean, and those, in terms of the support cases that we get in for our system, so much of it is around authentication. So again, and allowing people to use the system, giving them access to the system. So if we can remove those barriers, that just makes everybody's life easier for us as a vendor and for the end user, of course.
Okay, good. Joe, where security and compliance are particularly important, such as in HMG or government, pharmaceutical and financial sector, insurance is critical. What tools are appropriate and what should people be wary of?
Well, I mean, the first point I made was really around consumerization of these enterprise apps will drive adoption. The reason why people step outside and use, I suppose, non-compliant applications when they're dealing with often highly sensitive or regulated information is that they simply can't use the tools that are being put in front of them. So people will fall back to use WhatsApp if they're not able to quickly send a message with the given tools that they've got, and that's where they, get into these areas where they are leaving themselves open to be attacked, but also gone after by regulators and people who are looking after the industries. So from our perspective, it's very clear that you need to be using properly vetted tools that are built for purpose. Obviously, from our perspective, we are a secure communication company that focuses on trying to drive adoption through making our system very easy to use and consumer-esque for the end user. But we sell a completely different package to the enterprise, where they're worried about compliance, management, visibility, and obviously security. And the way we've set our system up, and the way our clients want the system described to them as they consider us, is in a very open and transparent way from a privacy perspective. And so we need to be able to tick the boxes and show that we do what we say we're doing. You're right. I mean, this is absolutely critical within government. It's their number one concern. What systems are you using? Is it compliant? Is it trusted? Does it have sufficient accreditation? And also within healthcare, where there's a lot of PII information being shared, and you have a duty of care to the end users, the people that you're talking about, in reference to the communications that you're using to protect them. And also, we're seeing a massive trend within legal. One of the impacts of COVID is that more and more law firms are taking their practices and forcing people to work from home because of the restrictions that are in place today and probably for the foreseeable future. And they need to have a secure environment where they can communicate with the systems that they're using, that they maybe expect to access from within an office. And now that has been pushed out to access that from a relatively unlocked down home environment, where they're using the laptop that is maybe more protected when they bring it into the corporate Wi-Fi. So it's essential that the technology that's running on the on their laptops and the applications that they're running are enterprise. Obviously, there's a move towards more communication through the smartphones as well. That is often out of band. So the challenge for gov and healthcare and legal is making sure that they're being able to offer their employees something that is very usable but ticks all the boxes, as we say, around compliance and management and control and visibility.
Fabian, do you have anything to add to Joe's comments?
Would absolutely agree with Joe, and I think security compliance are important overall, specifically in areas that touch sensitive corporate and thus often personal information, such as an end user's healthcare or financial data. And I feel a large factor that demands striking the right balance here is this new situation around remote work and really having large portions of the workforce work from way less secure environments than their corporate networks, which still need to be compliant with these regulations you have in place in these highly regulated industries. Where prior to COVID, with non-remote work, you essentially there has always been an implicit guarantee that the people who are working on a project or a task or access a certain system are the ones who they claim to be, either by working in the same room or a few doors down the hallway. You can always walk up to them and see who's working on a particular project, and that type of intuitive, informal and secure authentication is missing in a remote setting completely. And one technology that offers a potential solution to this is biometrics, which are easy to use as peeking into your coworker's office and provide a strong guarantee that the individual who's being authenticated is the intended user and not someone who's aware of the user's password, for example. But here again, privacy compliance around biometrics as a sensitive type of personal data is even more important. But overall, when it comes to controlling access to data or securing communication, we have these three overall methods of authenticating individuals, which is the act of verifying our claimed identity, which we commonly do through username and password. But we generally have these factors of an inherence factor as something we are, such as our biometric information, a possession factor as a device or hard token that we may use to add an additional layer of security, and something we know as a password. And in fact, when it comes to regulation and securing access from the consumer side, for example, to financial information or authorizing payments in the context of making payments in Europe, we have the PSD2 requirements around strong customer authentication, which require exactly this combination of at least two of these three factors. So oftentimes we receive PIN codes that we as users copy and paste, or switching to another soft token like a banking app to perform that authentication process. So oftentimes we get stronger security only at the expense of the user experience in the process. And I think there's certainly a lot of innovation that is happening in that space, in both making this more secure, but also more usable and convenient for the average user who's now working in a very different setting as before in terms of making this happen.
Okay, good. And we'll move on to another question. Thank you. But given all this COVID and working remotely, is this is an opportunity now for companies like Salt and Keyless and other SMEs with solutions built specifically with security and privacy as a design feature to excel by working together to leverage the capabilities? It's the sort of thing that you might not necessarily expect some of the bigger players to do.
Absolutely. I mean, from my perspective, being a relatively small company with a single focus on the product that we have actually gives us a bit of a leg up on larger players. It makes perfect sense for us to be working with the likes of Fabian and Keyless to remove the barriers and make authentication within our system as frictionless as possible. For Fabian and Keyless, it makes perfect sense for them to be finding killer apps for them to be integrating with to drive the adoption of their technology. So we can do that fast. It's much more difficult for larger enterprises to get their act together and action on this. That's something that I've learned from being in this space for a number of years, is that actually having the agility to move fast is where you find the opportunities, and you can actually be very, very creative in how you come about answering the big questions, because often the larger players in the market have many more restrictions on them in terms of a legacy install base, just much more complexity within their environment, and the more, I think, complicated decision-making process, where I know that I have a small number of key technologists within our organization that are happy to get their whiteboard and thrash out really difficult problems. And I mean, I don't know what your thoughts are, Fabian.
Yeah, I can absolutely agree with you. I mean, both in terms of decision-making processes and flexibility in terms of integrating with new technology that have proven in a particular niche, such as SaltDNA when it comes to securing communication, especially in the context where commonplace solutions that most enterprises would go to in the very first place are just not the right ones for that very specific use case. And especially when these solutions are then built in a flexible and modular structure where the actual end customer can pick and choose the components they need to solve their challenges. For example, when it comes to an added or a different method of authenticating their users into such a military-grade security or secure communication platform like SaltDNA, I think is crucial. And the decision-making process and the actual implementation of these potential synergies that lie between small to medium-sized businesses who are already proven and successful in the market are way quicker than the processes that large enterprises would see in potential synergies and collaborating together.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're off the hook from doing it right. We still need to prove that despite the fact that we're moving fast and we're churning out a solution at a relatively quick pace. One thing that our customers will be looking for, particularly in the government space or legal healthcare, wherever you're going with this finance, is how secure is it? What are you doing to show us that it's secure and protect that? And above all, I mean, is it usable and is it easy to adopt by our users? They're the key drivers.
Would it be fair to say that some of the more widely used apps clearly have been developed for an entirely different market and have a different business model around it, which is actually all about leveraging the marketing material that they can harvest from the users, whereas I guess you guys are set up from a different perspective of being security and privacy by default, and that's perhaps a great differentiator to consider from a business perspective of potential users.
Absolutely. The first question that anyone would ask when considering a commercial product like Salt or Keyless is, why should I pay for that if it's free somewhere else? And the reality is, for a WhatsApp that's owned by Facebook, they offer end-to-end encryption, and that is a resonator with people when they think about security. But from our perspective, understanding security is not just about end-to-end encryption. It really is. It's really encryption with control, management, compliance, and even visibility. When we offer to our end customers the ability for them to own and control their own secure comms platform that can integrate in with the other services that they need. So it's a very, very different proposition. We have no desire to have 2 billion users on our system. That's just not what we're building. We're selling this to organizations that at the high end are buying at multiple thousands users at a time. But collectively, if we were looking down the line a number of years, we would have several million users as opposed to billion users on our system. But that's where we're coming at it, because we're offering a commercial product that allows you to protect your privacy, as opposed to offering you a free product where we get access to private information that you're exchanging or metadata that you're exchanging if it's not actually the method or the messages themselves.
Yeah, and I very much agree here. I think privacy and security by design is really a fundamental value question in addition to the actual business model. And also, Andrew, you're completely right in saying at the core, it's that behavioral advertising model that companies like Google or Facebook and others engage in. And they say their products and services are free, but in fact, we all pay, and we all pay with our data. And they will continue to collect more and more and more. And they collect the data to use AI and machine learning algorithms to manipulate us in actions that drive their profits, whether that's clicks, purchases we do on these platforms, or insights through analytics based on that data. So in fact, building these privacy and security characteristics into these products and services is as much a technical question as it is around monetizing and building a business that really focuses and embraces privacy and security as core values that should be,
Okay, thank you very much. So as a slight twist to this, if you take a view at the devices on which these services that you offer run, is it possible for trust to be provided onto bring your own devices, and what might that entail? Clearly, there must be some mechanism by securely provisioning and then building trust around that. Is that the sort of things that you're able to deal with?
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And bring your own device, especially in times of remote work or flexible work, where we all work from home, and use various of our devices is very much timely. With what Keyless concerns, we don't trust the underlying hardware. So we're completely interoperable across devices, platforms, and types of devices, whether that's smartphones, laptops, or tablets. But what we see as common concerns in BYOD, or so bring your own device deployments, is securing that mobile device that the employee or user is using. The application risk you may have with various different applications other than professional applications being installed on that phone, and then managing that mobile environment, which is very much heterogeneous and not as easy to control as it would be with corporate mobile devices that are relatively straightforward to manage and secure, where you control the distribution and the types of devices that are being given out and provisioned to users, where there are several ways to address that. And first of all, you could differentiate between trusted and untrusted devices, or not allow each and every device to be used, or have a step-up authentication method, or trigger other security events around that, or introduce a mobile device management solution that enforces policies or monitors the usage of these devices that the employees take. And then there's also an educational element of just making the employees and users aware of the security risks that using own devices, which are not part of the corporate infrastructure, have inherently with them as part of the overall awareness training that many companies are running.
Yeah, and it's a spectrum, isn't it? I mean, we can, as you said, Fabian, we can install fit for purpose applications that we know are compliant, but if the device is not locked down, or you're just allowing any old app to be installed, then you are really leaving yourself wide open. So that's when you're getting pushed towards the UEM, device management solutions to protect what you're bringing onto the device. But as you say, if you know where the threat vector is, you can put a UEM on when the device is just bought, and make sure that really nothing, only the trusted applications that you want on the device are put there. And again, that's a trade-off, but because what you're doing is maybe pushing people to use a second device then if they want to use a WhatsApp, and then you're losing full control. So it's a very difficult challenge for any CISO to make these decisions, and they're really being challenged to come up with something that is both usable and compliant. And there is a trade-off at different areas around, restrictions versus letting them use systems that you trust, and then doing everything you can to prevent bad stuff getting onto the phone. And then there are those people who will be targeted simply because of their position within an organization or within a government, and they could be subject to very targeted 0 days, like we've seen through WhatsApp, and that's a completely different risk factor for any organization to manage as well.
I see. Okay, so we've obviously sort of discussed the the application level, the authentication, hosting. The provisioning on devices. What about hosting these sorts of secure solutions? A lot are hosted by third parties. They could be offshore. What about cloud? Is that a platform that you can securely roll out these services? How would you see that as being part of a solution?
Yeah, so concerning Keyless, I would absolutely say yes. We ourselves, we are provisioned on the cloud, and we could be deploying on premise as well. But we're seeing really a large shift or trend to digital transformation that leverages cloud only or cloud first infrastructures. However, we'd also say that we do not store any sensitive information in that process on these platforms. So in itself, it doesn't really matter where the type of data is stored, because we don't involve any sensitive information. What we see, however, in terms of overall cloud usage, when it comes to authentication, that that paradigm has really magnified the password problem even more, which led to that situation of companies trying to decouple identity management and authentication, as many of these identity platforms that also run in the cloud or being transitioned into the cloud build their multi-factor products on top of passwords and shared secrets. And we have these three tech giants as Amazon, Microsoft, and Google all compete for their pie in the sky and include more and more features. But we also see that the magnitude already is enormous, where Microsoft alone, with their Azure Active Directory, manages more than 1.2 billion identities in the cloud and processes over 8 billion authentication events on a daily basis. So it's really huge. But what digital identity has at the same time become more centralized and commoditized. But the authentication layer has grown and has become more fragmented, which also led to challenges that businesses face when offering authentication through the cloud, which is an overabundance of MFA applications, where people have multiple MFA solutions or various authenticators installed on their phones, which still rely on passwords. So the underlying issue is not being addressed. And then there's the user experience aspect of re-enrolling and having different approaches for different solutions who are integrated in a different way. So it does certainly help in terms of universal access, scalability, flexibility, but there's also issues that come with the cloud way of authenticating people.
Good points. I'd say from our perspective, what we see is that, again, it depends who the customer is. Many of our customers are happy to use our cloud service. We spend a huge amount of effort ensuring the security and compliance within our cloud service. But very candidly, for some of our customers, the idea of owning their own secure communication system that they deploy within their control, so that they don't have to, trust me or Salt. They know that when they deploy it, that they can lock the door behind us. And if someone holds a gun to my head, I'll have to say, you're going to have to go and speak to BAE because they run the service themselves. Then that's the warm and fuzzy for those customers. And we would see, we started off building, a cloud service, highly scalable, highly secure, and we have been pulled back into on-premise deployments simply because our customers want to remove trust as an element of that deployment. Not that we hold any sensitive information within our system or the minimum amount of sensitive information. It's just for them being able to wrap their arms around their own system that they're fully in control of is the most important thing. So it's a bit of a mix, Andrew. We see it both sides.
It's great to have the flexibility and choice.
Yeah, and it was actually a really beneficial thing for us to have built this elastic cloud service from the get-go, because what we really do then is just shrink wrap it and give it to an organization, and they have a Docker install and they can be up and running in minutes. So, one of the things of being able to support an on-prem is, I'll keep saying it, is to remove friction, to make it as easy to administer and to run as possible. And we need to make sure that we can actually work within the infrastructure that the organizations that we're selling to, prefer to use.
That's great. Thank you very much. We're kind of coming to the end of our time. So thank you, Joe and Fabian, for your comments. Do you have any final comments to sum up your thoughts on the overall subject of remote working?
Yeah, I mean, I think we really do live in interesting times. This is fast moving. There are many things, I think, coming out of this surge of working from home. It's definitely something that's here to stay for a lot of people within most organizations. So there's work to be done. I think work to be done on simplification of simplification of usage and adoption to drive that. And we intend to spend a lot of our time bringing in the necessary components to integrate with the other leading solutions to allow us to provide a secure communications platform to organizations where they have a much more distributed workforce working off different devices that they need to keep them productive in order to meet the needs and the mission of the organization that they work for.
Brilliant, thank you.
Yes, I share Joe's view. I think times are truly interesting, and innovation is very rapid, with security and essentially identity at the very center of it. Where we touched upon the trends that we see around zero trust networking, securing access and communication protocols, but also the concept of decentralized identity or digital identity overall, where we, in the medium term, also see that convergence between our workforce identities and consumer identities getting closer and closer, and essentially becoming very similar, which offers great benefits for us as users and individuals toward a more personal, secure, and also convenient future of how we authenticate and manage our identities online. And I think this is also something that COVID and the situation around work from home is accelerating massively. And overall, I think there's a light at the end of the tunnel. There's great outcomes that will come throughout this process. I hope to be contributing to that with Keyless and the work that we're doing. I'm very happy to be involved in that very moment in time in this industry.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much both for your time and input. It's been most insightful. I'm certainly hoping that we can do more with you in the future. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks, Connor.
Thank you both. Thank you, Joe.
No, Fabian.
Great.
Thank you very much.
Brilliant.
So that is the end of our first Partner Focus podcast. We sure are living in interesting and fast-moving times, and many of the actions and outcomes that come out of today are here to stay. And they also need to be suitably robust to secure long-term remote working. So thank you to both of our guests today, Joe Boyle and Fabian Eberel. Their thoughts have been much appreciated, and I hope you've enjoyed hearing from them as much as I have. As I said, this is the first of a series of partner-centered podcasts, and I hope you'll find the following ones interesting too. Thank you.